Alrighty, bow hunters, welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Bowhunter. Sitting here online with Mr. Tom Clum Sr. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Maddie.
You're more than welcome. It's very interesting. Your name came up many years ago for me. So when I very first got into bow hunting as a late onset hunter, I went to the range with my friend Adam, and he actually said to me, "You need to listen to this podcast with Tom Clum on the push archery. Listen to this; it will give you it'll give you the concepts of what you need to understand for trad hunting or for trad setup, essentially." And being given my background in sports and in just health and fitness and as a personal trainer, and I went into CrossFit, and mechanics has always been a major standpoint for me, something that I always knew because I got injured. If you didn't move correctly, that it was a quick route eventually to getting injured. And I think that we see that even a lot here within bow hunting. And I talk about it often on the podcast. One day I went out for a bow hunt in the morning and it was reasonably cold. I didn't do any like shoulder rolls or warm ups or anything. And I had a deer walk into me and I drew back my bow and I pretty much just tore a muscle while I was doing it because I just was not warm. I wasn't in a good position. And I was that eager to get the shot off that I drew back and just fought through the pain to get to there. I'm like, I don't care what happens. I got to get this deer. Then, of course, I didn't get the deer. So it
Yeah.
was a good learning lesson for me early on. But I think what I'd love to really dive into, Tom, given your background and given the stuff that you've got such great knowledge on, is actually just shot repeatability for a trad hunter. I feel like there's so much out there for compounds and making your shot process a repeatable process that you go through every single time. But then I feel like when it comes to recurve and trad bows and long bows, essentially it's not that it's not out there. It's definitely out there. I just don't feel like it's talked about enough. And so, as an Australian audience and New Zealand audience, there is some definitely Americans that listen in to this podcast. But I feel let's just try to educate as many as we can as well. So yeah, could you take us through the processing of what you go through? There's plenty of videos that you have online that are very great and go into great detail. And I think one of the biggest things is hard to express on a podcast is the little tactical cues that you can give someone, the touch, the move your shoulder down, just pull your shoulder blades in this. No, can you feel it like this? That's the stuff that gets missed. And that's where coming to the live workshop or something like you would be amazing. But we can at least explain the process and get people in a better state to start with, hopefully.
Okay. That's my wheelhouse. That's easy for me to do. That's easier for me to talk about this kind of stuff than myself. So I'd love to go for like foundational concepts that many of your shooters will already know, and that's fine. Might give them a different way to word it when they're teaching others. It might be a benefit from just hearing somebody that does it every day and the wording I use and over the years, how I've come to explain it in terms that the guys catch on the fastest or the ladies catch on the fastest. Let me organize my my thoughts a little bit. So basically, I want to start with speaking about the three. If we were to simplify a heck of a lot of nuance to a shot into three basic jobs, those three basic jobs would be job number one is to build a holding position. And I'll get into that in a bit. So we build a holding position, most important position in archery. That's where the shot comes right from. And we need that position to be repeatable. We need to set it up with skeletal alignment. We need our skeletal structure lined up this way to reduce muscular tension. And we need to build it in a way that we put the stresses, we're under compressive load with a bow. We need to do it in a way that puts the stress into our back muscles and takes it off of the shoulder muscles. Okay. And we want to use big muscles instead of smaller muscles attached to a vulnerable joint. And you as a trainer will really appreciate this system that we talk about. Job number one, build the holding position. Job number two, we got to get the bow aimed. And there's many different aiming methods. And it does matter which one you use. There are better aiming methods than for different situations. And we can dive into aiming methods, but let's just call that as a job on its own. We got to get the bow aim. You got to have an aim you like, an aim you love. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Does not mean shoot. Job number three is, in archery terms, it's the expansion of the follow-through movement. We need to get that string off of our fingers in a manner that I'm going to say is produced from the subconscious or produced in a way that we can't tell the exact moment of release. So you hear the term, the release must be subconscious. That doesn't mean much without further explanation.
Mhm.
When we get to that part of this foundational concepts, I'll get to that. We need to concentrate at the end of our shot. After aim is made, we have to concentrate on a movement that makes the bow go off. And that movement that makes the bow go off has to develop a release from the subconscious brain. It cannot be a cognitive now moment. And we'll go much deeper dive into that when we start talking about
Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot that I want to
the
dive with that.
expansion to follow through. So I kind of like to lay out the terms. Let's
Yeah, I
simplify
love it.
it.
Yep.
And then I'll describe terms in simple format, like this is what we're looking for, but this is and then go deep. This is the
Mhm.
biomechanics behind it. Because I know that when you're listening to information or listening to people who are teaching you, I think that everyone should approach information with high skepticism, especially on YouTube, because there's so much good at the minefield of good and bad information. It's really
Mhm.
hard for the newer archer to sort that all out. So,
Definitely.
so I like to explain it in simple terms, go into the biomechanics and bring it back to simple terms, because that's the way we're going to need to think about it when we produce these positions.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
guess
so,
from a biomechanics standpoint, as well as what you were saying about being stacked, bone on bone alignment, like
correct.
everything that we ever taught inside of weightlifting in particular was all about that. Because if you're trying to press 150 kilos overhead with a bent arm, it's going to be it's so hard to ever hold that. Versus if you're stacked and you've got elbows locked out, shoulders locked out, arms on top of, or sorry, bones on top of bone, what you'll always find is that weight becomes more sustainable and you can actually hold it in positions. And so the exact
Yeah.
same thing comes into archery. And it's so interesting when you find that position, which obviously we'll talk to, when you do draw back when you draw back and you're bent in position versus when you do completely open up, that difference in feeling of holding the bow back, it really becomes a night and day difference with a
Yes.
trad bow.
Yes, especially with a trad bow,
Mhm.
absolutely. And then if people are wondering where this information comes from, I am a level 4 NTS coach. That means that I've gone through all the certification levels from USA Archery. And that fourth one, only the Olympic coach can certify a level 4. I had to spend about a week at the Olympic Training Center here in Chula Vista, California, a couple states away from me. I had 50 hours of instruction, classroom instruction that involved all kinds of drills and all that kind of stuff. But it is a system developed by our Olympic coach at the time. And I think it's best information from the best minds in archery. Way smarter people figured this stuff out than me. I learned to do it. I learned to shoot. I learned to communicate it. But that's where this information is coming from primarily. I've studied well past my time there, but it was quite an intensive course. I could get into what it's all about, but that's not what we're here for. But it's nothing that I said, oh, I tried this and it worked, try this,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
what you normally hear. And that's what I normally gave before I had better information too, obviously. So I don't blame anybody for doing the best they can with what they have to work with. But I've just been fortunate enough to have so many absolute experts in my life that I could learn from. And it very much started with USA Archery and then culminating and spending 50 hours of classroom right in front of the Olympic coach and then exhaustive testing to be able to get this certification. So it's called NTS. It's our national training system. The Aussies had Bickley as their coach for a number of years, and he produced some Olympic medalists. And so a lot of the people teaching in Australia come right from the same system. So anyway, that's where the information comes from. But let's get started. When we're shooting a compound bow, that compound bow has mechanical stops that reproduce the draw length every time. Shooting a recurve, we don't get to have that. We need to use biomechanical stops to produce a repetitive draw length. To repeat our draw length, we can repeat a trajectory path, and we should eliminate most high and low misses. All right. So let me just talk about it in a simple format. The simplest way is what you hear all the time. You're in a T like this. That T, though, is built on some ends or ranges of movement that also provide alignment of that skeletal structure. So I'm going to have to find a way to tilt this camera to get back from it a little bit so I can show you what it means. I've got a really messy office except for the area behind me, which you might have to see, but that's okay.
That's
So I'm
actually the
going to try
exact
this,
same as
man.
my office. If I can relate.
I'm going to get some glares from
That's all right.
some. Let
Yeah.
me turn that one. Oh, it's that top light. How are we looking here, Matt? Is it better?
Yeah, much better.
Well, it's going to need to be turned a little bit
There you go. Even better.
forward down. Okay, that might be better. All right. So when we're ready to shoot, we're going to lift this bow up to about nose height. And during the drawing process, we're going to be twisting our body sideways, or what USA Archery calls coiling. We're
Yeah.
going to coil sideways until we hit an end of range of movement. We're simply going to turn our body sideways to the target until we hit an end of range of movement. Let me raise this a little bit, Natty. I'm sorry, I would have been a little bit prepared.
No, that's fine. This is pretty much what Tom's talking about is full extension of the front arm and pulling back the draw, but with that rotation that happens naturally as you do the push and pull of the bow.
Correct. But we're going to define that at a much better rate here. So I'm going to point this bow downward a little bit. Of course, it would be up at shoulder level, this way first. So this would show where my shoulders were pointing. So I'm going to coil sideways until I feel a soft stop.
Yep.
Now that's going to align this shoulder to my front hand. And that's going to stack those bones, as you would say. This will involve a very low shoulder.
Yeah.
Right?
Low front shoulder or the pressing down.
Front half of our alignment, shoulder to hand alignment. On the back side, and now what that does is bring us into a place where our shoulder blade is completely retracted to the spine. So it creates scapular retraction in the front side. Oh, yeah. I just kept it from simple. I went into the deeper discussion. Let me bring back to that. On this rear side, when I draw the bow, I am not going to pull that bow in the intuitive direction. It makes common sense for every single one of us, and every single one of us does it this way unless trained otherwise. It makes sense if I'm shooting that way to pull that way.
Correct. Yes.
We want to do that because the stress goes completely to the shoulder and we're using any of those back muscles. When I draw the bow, I'm actually making a movement like this.
Yeah.
Like this. And if I were to tighten my shirt a little bit so you could see my shoulder blade, I'm going to retract my scapula.
So pulling the shoulder on the pulling arm back and down, essentially, like a row motion. Yeah.
Yeah. So to make it more complex, what we're getting to a position of is both shoulder blades fully retracted towards the spine and depressed. So retracted and low. Because that shoulder blade controls a lot of stuff, okay? The muscles that attach to shoulder blades. So let me explain that at a deeper level. All these muscles inside between your shoulder blade and your spine are attached to your shoulder blade, and you could name them and I could name them, but so what? I've never seen them in real life. But in any case, when these muscles contract, they draw the shoulder blade towards the spine. Now, the shoulder blade is attached to the humerus. So as the shoulder blade retracts, do it this way, it's going to drag as the shoulder blade retracts towards the spine, it's going to drag the humerus along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
So when we draw a bow, when we put a folding angle in it, however, if I have 4 inches of scapular retraction here, I'm going to have about 4 inches of movement at the end of my arm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we put a folding angle in it up here, that's all I do is just dump this shoulder down and back. I'm not pulling this way at all.
No, it just shows how much more.
This movement by pressing the shoulder back, I'll hit scapular retraction. Now that 4 inches of scapular retraction, now is creating 14 to 16 inches of movement at the end of my fingers.
Mm.
All produced from this movement. There's a protracted and retracted.
Yep. Shoulder back and down. It's crazy, isn't it?
All I'm doing now is giving you a simple cue to drive this movement. So when I'm training this movement, I'll say, okay, concentrate on moving what we might call the shoulder girdle. So tell us to do this. I'm saying, push that shoulder forward and press that shoulder back, keeping a low shoulder.
Yeah.
Push it forward, draw it back. What they're doing is they're actually cueing a movement that's going to retract their shoulder blade. It's press the shoulder back. The minds connect to those back muscles that are going to retract that scapula and back the shoulder move. So that's the easiest cue to get people into building a brain neural muscle connection between those muscles that retract the scapula and your brain. Is all we're doing.
Yeah.
So I have them do it like this at a 90-degree angle from their body with a low shoulder, and I'll just have them press the shoulder back and forward. And sometimes that's difficult at first. But what we're doing is we're building back tension. We're building a connection to the back muscles. And then what I'll have them do is I'll have them get to a 90 here and a 90 here, and then I'll have them turn their hand sideways because that's the way we're going to shoot them.
Before we move into that, I think it's something that's worthwhile if you want a visual of that, if you haven't watched us on YouTube, is looking up a movement called a scap push-up, which is essentially when you're in the push-up position and all you're doing is the exact movement that Tom's talking about here, which is pushing the shoulders forward, rounding the back, and then pinching the shoulder blades together whilst you're in a plank-like position. It's pretty much exact concept of what Tom has just explained in depth.
And that's a terrific exercise for archers, obviously. This is the specific muscles we're going to use in an archery shot. There's another YouTube video that the Push took when I was in Michigan about 3 years ago, where I went through this with the audience.
Yeah.
There's another place you can find it. It's on the Push Archery, and it was a seminar I did in Michigan, probably about 3 years ago. You got to have to
do some searching. Yeah.
Go back. But anyway, I have you get to this position and do the same thing. Notice the direction of tension or movement is behind my back.
Yeah.
So I'll just get them to do this movement here, and then proceed to getting them to put their finger right under their nose. And I want people to do this to get to learn to move those back muscles, to contract those back muscles, and then just simply press the shoulder back. I don't want this to drag. I want this to be pinned in here like a. So let's start with pushing the shoulder forward, and you're going to see your elbow rotate forward. Keep your body slow, Maddie. Okay.
I just go to my microphone a little bit.
So we push the shoulder forward. Now the elbow sticks out to the front a little bit, right? I just press the shoulder back. You'll see this elbow rotate around the corner. Boom. And hit an end of range of movement. We'll get 5 reps in that forward and press the shoulder back. There you go. Press the shoulder back and rotation at the elbow. So the linear direction is straight behind you, but it causes rotation at the elbow. So when I press this, when I press this shoulder back, the elbow rotates around the corner and hits an end of range of movement.
Yeah.
That little movement we use in the shots, because when we come into anchor, we do the same thing. Boom, we press the shoulder back and we get the rest of the contraction out of the scapula. So then drop back into anchor and then press that shoulder back. I get that last little rotation of the elbow and get to an end of range of movement. Now that elbow rotates behind or maybe even inside the string. So what I produce is 2 ends of range of movement. All I did is while I'm drawing the bow, I was coiling the end of range of movement. I was driving the shoulder back. I was pressing the shoulder back to even draw the bow, right? So like a end range of movement here,
and
then end of range of movement here.
And that creates our stacking process.
It's your draw line.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it does other things. It provides alignment from this shoulder to that shoulder to the front hand. It provides alignment from the elbow to the back shoulder to the front shoulder to the front hand. So now we've produced alignment. Alignment is king. Like your exercise, alignment is vitally important. Because if you leave this elbow out just a little bit, now you've created the hinge of the system, and this thing's you're under compressive load, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't get that elbow behind that barrel, it's much more difficult to maintain this position and this position. And each difference, you will notice under the weight of the bow, under the compressive load.
Definitely.
So we first of all, we've used big back muscles to reduce our holding position instead of smaller ones attached to our shoulder, which is a vulnerable dang joint. It's only supported by little 4 muscle groups that are guy wires that hold that thing into a little saucer. It's not like a ball and joint, like your hip joint. But when we get the back muscles pulling that thing in there to retraction, now not only those 4 muscle groups that comprise the rotator cuff are supporting this sitting in its little saucer, but you have those big back muscles supporting in its little saucer. So when your shoulders are low and retracted, that's the least vulnerable position for your shoulders. If I was going to have a big collision, I suck this down, I'd have the least chance of dislocation. If I took this up here, it's going to take my scapula from here, and it's going to take that way up to there. Now I'm only supported by the rotator cuff, and that's where the dislocations happen the easiest. So when we're doing this whole thing, our shoulders are low, which is going to have some retraction scapula. We're going to get, what we're doing is we're getting the scapulas to the spine and depressed and low, retracted and low scapulas, which is your shoulders down and back, basically. All right. So when we do this, we're taking our spine to the scapula. We have retraction. When I do this to draw the bow, I'm taking the scapula to the spine. Those loads are different. This load is wanting to yank this thing forward. This load is compressed straight in. Right. So if you pull your shirt off, they're not going to look balanced. They look different because they're under different types of load.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of weight trying to pull this one around the corner, and we're getting this one squished in by good alignment. Okay, just wanted to point that out because this pinching the shoulder blades together stuff is bad advice. It's not what we're trying to do. We want the scap retraction in different ways. We get it with the coil on this side, and we drive that shoulder back to get retraction on this side.
Yeah, it's an interesting, yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, and I think many people use
the word, isn't it?
No, yeah, I think people use the pinching the shoulders together as a concept of saying keep your shoulders back and down. You have that feeling of pinching them together, but you're right in saying, yeah, completely different movements are happening.
When you pinch your shoulders, you are retracting your scapulas. So that concept is useful, but we don't have to think about it here because we're just simply coiling sideways to a soft end range of movement.
Yes.
Now, notice I said soft end range of movement. We can go further. That's why I call it a soft end range of movement. But look what happens to the front shoulder when I do that. So I come to here, that's good. If I drive that further, that shoulder's going to come up.
Yeah.
And we're stretching the whole joint and making it much less stable.
Yeah.
So when you
I feel like you see that as well.
You go into shoulder alignment, those hard drivers, they'll push it even further, shoulder forward, and you're not doing something that's good for their shot.
I feel like also your traps, the muscles on top of the shoulders tend to take over when people are overbowed as well.
Absolutely. For archery, you could cut those dang things off. It's supporting instructors. They're part of the whole support system. However, when the weakest link in the system is depression. It's the weakest link in the system. If you put Mr. Atlas in hydraulic press sideways, the first thing that would give wouldn't be an elbow or anything else. It would be a shoulder.
Shoulders, yeah.
So when we're overbowed a bit, it's really almost impossible to keep the shoulder down under this compressive load. And then that's a sign of being overbowed. I just can't maintain this position. The sign of being overbowed this way is I just can't get the shoulder all the way around the corner to the end of range of movement.
Yeah.
And when we're evaluating a new shooter, we're to determine the draw weight that they're going to shoot. We're looking for their ability to produce these positions. We want every proper position and movement available to their body, and a certain draw weight, those most proper positions movement aren't available to them. So they're not going to train good positions and movements. All right, so back to simple. All right, we're going to set our hook, we're going to set our grit, we're going to lift this to about nose height. We're going to do two movements together. At the same time, we're going to do this movement. See how my hands separate?
Yep.
So even your core is helping you draw the bow. Because I'm not pulling this at all, but as I coil my body sideways, it's separating the string from the bow.
Yeah.
And the other movement is this movement here. Some different angles. This movement here. So we put those two together, anchor, transfer, hold. So we've used the biggest muscles available that are not attached to a vulnerable joint, and we've produced skeletal alignment.
Yeah.
And we repeated our draw length. So that's foundational to a good archery shot. At the elite level, they do some different things. They actually raise and coil. They pre-align their holster or draw the bow. So we've got low brace height, heavyweight hunting bows. To keep this on this line while we're coiling sideways, it's not real practical for us hunters.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way you'll see an Olympian do it. Raise and coil at the same time. We want to put a little recoiling pressure, not pulling, just push our shoulder down into the ground and just twist sideways. You will feel the lats light up from that movement.
Yeah.
And that's going to help you with depression or keeping it. I actually do it up here. I'll just set the shoulder down, push at the target, and turn sideways a little bit before I start drawing because it engages those depressing muscles. So I'll just do a little coil and then I'll drive the shoulder back and finish my coil. That's the technique involved in ensuring that shoulder stays down.
Yeah.
We went over it with one or two sentences, but that is a very critical movement if you're having problems with keeping your shoulder down. So you might want to review what I just said. You set the shoulder down, press at the target, and simply start a little half an inch sideways turn. You will feel these muscles light up. and then just keep it rolling because it continues this engagement into that alignment to your anchor and transfer hold.
Yeah. So for the listeners, it's those who are just
That's a
listening.
really good fix for shoulders that rise.
Yeah. So what Tom's talking about is in that rotation that starts the movement of your press and pull concept of the bow. So you've got your arms straight, and as you go to start pulling, it's the rotation that naturally happens with with that first initial pull. That's what Tom's talking to right now.
Correct. Thank you. That's good additional clarification. Excellent. Anyway, I'm going to have built my holding position. Shot number 1 is done.
Easy.
So, in the simplest forms, keep the shoulder low the whole time. Lift the bow up to nose height. Press that shoulder down. Make sure your shoulder's down. And press that arm at the target. Start your coil to get those lats to line up and just twist sideways. Drive the shoulder back, and it'll hit a stop there. There's your anchor depth. Transfer hold.
Yeah, love it. That, and you do always, do you cue that as a separate movement, that transfer the hold always?
Transfer to hold is a separate movement because theoretically you could come in here and roll right into it, which would be good, but I make sure I get it. It's really easy to leave out that last bit.
Definitely.
Go to the back to get that last little bit of retraction. It's super easy to let out. Because I know me and I leave it out sometimes, it's something that's in my shot sequence or my thought sequence.
Yeah.
It's one of the things. And I'll leave out a little bit of coil, which will change my draw length. This is the biggest change to draw length right here.
Definitely.
You'd be amazed at a half inch of movement, how much draw length that affects. This transfer is only maybe a half inch, quarter inch, half inch of draw length that you're missing out on if you don't drive it back. But this is inches.
Yes.
Now, there is one limiting factor to this movement. The ability to comfortably look over the top of your hand when your shoulders are aligned to your front hand. There will be some older people in my age. There will be some people with neck injuries. And when they coil into it, they can only look here.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say also, dudes that have spent too long bench pressing and not doing anything else, the rounded shoulder fellas. Yep. Yeah.
Now, in that case, they're going to have to leave their chest open a little bit, which is going to create a hinge here, which is going to force them to shoot a lighter bow to maintain any kind of consistent position.
Yeah. Okay.
We got to do what we can with the body that we have.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that is the one limiting factor I wanted to talk about real quick. That makes sense. So now aim, I always teach people a gap method at first because I want a very specific aim, because I want to have a direct measurement for a shot, whether it's hit if we're shooting in a group with that specific aim. And that's what we want to do. If we shoot in a group, that means our mechanics are repeatable.
Yeah. So let's talk on what the gap is straight away then as well.
Okay. Well, gap shooting is based on the fact that we have to create a gap because our eyes are on this level to the target, but the knock is down here. So the knock being lower causes an upward launch angle. So if we're looking at the tip of the arrow from here, but we have a launch angle on the arrow here, where those things intersect, those two lines between your vision and the load knock intersect is going to be the point.
Yeah.
So any moderate distance, if I put the point on the target based on this visual, it's going to launch over the top of the target, which means to hit the bullseye, we're going to have to put the point of the arrow below the bullseye somewhere. And that's called our gap, our aiming gap.
And essentially you'll have a gap range that is flat where you'll hit it directly where the point is aiming.
Correct. That concept is something we call going from point blank to point on. Oh, grab an arrow shaft. A multitude.
I was going to say, there's about 300 behind you.
So if I'm an anchor and I come right to there, obviously that's point blank. I can't miss. Right? But as I back up, now there's a difference between that level of my eyes and the level of the arrow. I'm going to have to put this arrow below the bullseye somewhere, probably about right there, to hit the bullseye because it'll launch up into the bullseye from that gap.
Yeah.
To move further back, that arrow's got more time to rise in its trajectory path, and the gap increases. Wow. An arrow is just like a bullet; it has a trajectory path.
Right.
Yes. we're going to have to back up during this whole, as we go further, the arrow's got more time to launch upward, and we're going to have to continue aiming lower until we get to that halfway point where the arrows come up to the top of its trajectory path. That's where your maximum gap is going to be. And then your aiming gap is going to come back up, start coming back up as you get further away, because now we've accounted for all the upward trajectory. Now we have to account for some of the downward trajectory. And by doing so, we're going to raise the gap a little bit. And then as we back up, the gap gets closer, closer, closer until we hit a point where the point on the target, you'll hit the target because we've accounted for all the upward trajectory and all the downward trajectory.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
When I was always an instinctive aimer, then I'll describe that. That is just coming into anchor. You're seeing your hand out there. You're looking just at the spot you want to hit. You're unaware of the arrow, and you produce a release. And by some form of magic, you hit what you're looking at. Okay, that's the simplest. Yeah. Case. This is a skill set that you're born with or not. It's the ability to eventually do that. You're born with or not.
And it's like the ability to throw a rock and hit things. Yeah.
That is somehow, if I were to try to explain it, some way or another, our brain is seeing that trajectory path at the more at the subconscious level and seeing that spatial relationship and putting the two together. It's really weird for me having the ability to instinctive aim, that I'm unaware of the arrow. And when I was well practiced and I was shooting heavier bows when I was younger and had really flat trajectory paths, I could do it from short distance to long distance and actually hit what I was simply looking at. It just even amazed myself.
Mm.
We'll say, "Oh, you're using the arrow." I am unaware of the arrow, and they call me BS and fun. Because when you don't have or your brain doesn't have that connection, it is PFM, pure flipping magic, I'll say. And there's an old joke I use. I've said on other podcasts: you get what you're born with, right? I didn't get 6'3" and good looking, but I can instinctive aim. But those guys are 6'3" and good looking, and they didn't earn that either.
Yeah.
So, in any case, if a fella has the ability or a woman to do that, it's something that should be developed eventually, because there's some times where you can't read a range, and that ability to do that is exceptionally valuable. But for more people than not, there's no way that equates just looking at something.
Definitely.
Now, I learned to gap shoot and use the arrow to aim with. Now, if I know a range, I'm certainly going to gap shoot because it feels like shooting. It is so certain. It is so precise. It's obviously at a known range, at a known gap. I'm going to use that to aim. So even if you're an instinctive aimer, at least wear your point on first.
Yeah.
Put that aiming tool in your tool belt.
Mm.
Put that tool in your tool belt, because now, say if it's 40 yards, you could put one right in there at 40. The thing that hangs guys up with a precise aim like that is they try to, now it's very precise. It's not vague like an instinctive aim.
Yes.
It's very precise because there's an arrow tips in your sight vision there. And it's moving. And so we start doing it now, and we try to catch that perfect aim when the arrow's right in the perfect spot. Let me get into the mental management.
Yes.
And a lot of guys say, "Oh, I tried gap shoot. I can't do it. It doesn't work for me." Here's why. I'm going to sit down. You can get me talking about mechanics for days, buddy. And no, man. Just back down. All right. Your body has a defensive system. It's a reflexive system where it will contract muscles for, brace for, or flinch for anything that gives it pressure, shock, or impact. It's a hardwired system. You cannot desensitize yourself to it.
Hence why you flinch when someone throws a punch. Yeah.
You will dodge that punch consciously or subconsciously. You will, if you can consciously hold still, like I'll do a little thing where I'll have a guy put his hand up and I'll come in and just touch his hand, just a little bit of pressure. I'll do it once or twice only, and then I'll miss. And what is this? I'll do it usually one time. I'll put his hand and I'll come and miss, and his hand will move towards where he thought my fingers were going to be.
Yeah. So he's preempting.
That's a subconscious brace. Well, man, I showed you it was just touching your hand, and yet you braced for it. Anything that gives you pressure, shock, or impact. And I want to do that again. And I might do it again. I'll get half the movement. I'll do it again. And I know what's coming.
Yeah.
I'll do it again and I'll miss. And that hand never moves a bit. And I said, okay, what's going on up here?
Yeah.
You were tightened up. And 95% of the guys, I locked it up. I wanted to beat the game. I said, okay, there's your conscious brace. You put your consciousness to muscle contraction that kept it from moving.
Yeah.
Now let's play another game. Let's play another game just to show you. Now I want you to add these numbers up. So I'll say, okay, what's 2 plus 17? I'm touching this hand. 2 plus 17 plus 6 plus 4 plus whatever. Because I got his consciousness from the brace.
Yeah. Love it.
And I say, okay, you're going to consciously or subconsciously brace, but conscious control can only go to one thing. You can't be all braced up and produce a shot in any conscious way.
Yeah.
You can only do one thing with your conscious brain. You can only direct one movement or one activity.
And this goes deep into what Joel Turner teaches, essentially.
Even into what Joel Turner does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deep into what Joel Turner does. So I'm giving your audience a different kind of explanation.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
To this thing. Because this is Joel Turner, amazing thinker, an amazing artist now. He was the first person to bring this information and verbalize it to the archery community.
Yes.
He's an amazing thinker, but he was a firearms instructor. He's a SWAT sniper firearms instructor for the state of Washington's police academies too. And so he noticed that we're going to brace to the shock of a bow, just like we're going to brace to the gun going off. So much of the archery community did not understand this because a bow is not smoke, fire, big noise, or recoil. It's just a little bit of noise and a little bit of shock.
Yeah.
But the question I'll ask my students is okay, I'm touching you and you brace to it. How much shock does your bow give you compared to 2 fingers just touching your hand? It's unquantifiable, but the answer is more and a lot more. So you can't avoid a brace when I'm just touching your hand. How your body will not avoid the brace if it knows when the bow's going off. Make sense?
It's such a good little tie together.
Now, here's the next thing, and I want your students to do this, is I'll get a person to grab an arrow, and I'll have them pinch the nock, and pin it under their eye, and then set it on their hand up there. And anyway, I'll set it on top of their hand, and at 20 yards, I'll have them the tip float on a bullseye. And then what I'll come up there and do is I'll just touch their hand. I'll move it, make an 1/8 of an inch. I'll say, how far did you just miss by? A 1.5 feet. And I'll just barely touch it. How much you miss by? Oh, like 6 inches.
Yeah. Wow.
I said, you see how far your hand moved when I was just touching it? It could have been an 1/8 inch, could have been 2 inches, depending on how reactive the person is. I said, that is called a linked brace. It's a brace. It's a muscle contraction linked to pressure, shock, or impact. The bow provides shock. So this is why the guys that tried a gap fail. So anytime you're trying to catch an aim, you're informing your body of when the shock's coming, and your body will contract a muscle to brace for it. And that muscle contraction might cause an 1/8 inch of movement at the bow hand, which is almost imperceptible, but it becomes completely imperceptible because it times right with the bow going on. And I'll ask your audience, like, have you had those shots when you knew your aim was perfect and you hit about that far high and right on the left or low or anywhere but the middle?
Yeah.
And virtually everybody in your audience will, yeah, happens a lot. Or yeah, I can relate to that. That's your link brace. That's your imperceptible movement, which your bow hand only moved this much for, but causes this much miss at 20 yards. That's your link brace. That's from trying to catch the aim.
Yeah. I really love that.
We have to come up with a way to get that string off our fingers as a surprise, so to speak. I'm going to term it even further as a release generated from the subconscious. Conscious release, not a now moment, but a subconscious release, or from a reflex that happens equated to it, that is built on pressure through the string. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
That's a part of what I've been able to figure out and teach, because I have movement experts, a friend that's a movement expert that taught me the mechanism behind a subconscious release. So it's a movement that creates it. It's a reflex that creates it. All right. But I want to warn your audience about this. Now, when you are trying to catch an aim, you are you have a visual input and you're following it by a physical action.
Catch and aim, meaning you're trying to line up with the
You're
target,
trying
with the.
on the perfect aim.
Yes,
Now,
yeah, got you. Yeah.
anytime you follow a sensory input, anything you see, hear, or feel with a physical action or correction, the upper brain is running the show. Your consciousness is running the show. Now,
Yep.
the lower brain or the limbic brain or the reflexive brain, that's where your defense responses lie, however. And there's many parts of the brain, but these are the two main ones that in the sports psychology world, they simply term it in upper brain, conscious control, clear thought, and lower brain, subconscious activity, reflex, reactive activity. All right. Lower brain, upper brain. And so what happens is that the lower brain will pick up the link between the two and execute the movement out of the subconscious control. Here's one we want. When we were learning to drive a car, I got to switch sides of the road, but anyway, for you guys, but the lane is over here. We're in the projectile. The lane is over there to our right. We press on the gas, and we know there's a physical action that makes the car go that way. So the gas, and we turn the car, and our sensory input tells us, oh, we're in the middle, and we try to stop, but we go a little too far. Oh, now I know it's got to go that way, and we do the physical action of steering that way, and then repeat, repeat. And when you're in traffic and there's parked cars on this side and cars coming in on this side, you got to concentrate to make these corrections so you don't bash into anybody. You don't want your instructor talking to you much because you have to concentrate. You have to put your consciousness in those steering corrections. But after a certain number of hundreds of repetitions of making this physical correction to a sensory input, the lower brain picks up a link between the two and does the correction for you.
Yeah, interesting.
It steers the car out of subconscious control. Now you're just looking 50 yards down the road at the middle of the road. And you notice one day, I'm an old man, I still remember this. I'm noticing all these little micro adjustments to the wheel. And holy mackerels, like I'm not the one steering, and the adjustments are very small and very quick. And then now I can take my consciousness into a deep conversation with the instructor or my passenger. I can put my consciousness anywhere I want to be. All I have to do is use what's called a monitoring function. All I have to do is look down the middle of the road ahead of me. And if I see a pothole, boop, it happens.
Yeah.
Because the lower brain, the reflexive brain, has picked up the link and executes it for you. Same thing happens with a bow. Now, the steering got much more stable because a reaction from the conscious control happens at about 1250 milliseconds. A reaction from subconscious or reflexive control happens about 60 milliseconds.
Yeah, wow.
So that steering correction was made about 20 times faster when the reflexive brain picked up the link between what we're seeing and what we needed to do. So that's why they say the aim is subconscious. We built our reflex, we're using it. Looking at the bullseye, even if we have a gap, and your brain just steers the car to that gap. If it floats off within 60 milliseconds, it's pushing it back in.
Yeah.
If you're trying to control your aim, that gap or that point on or whatever your aiming method is going to drift 1250 milliseconds before it's pushed back to the middle. And then it's pushed back across the middle, and it's going to go 1250 milliseconds this way between you push it back across again.
And I feel like that's when you get a lot more drive-bys, people trying to pick the shot. Yeah.
Yeah. And that causes a lot of now.
Yeah.
First of all, we're consciously aiming. So this thing is moving all over the place. When you go to the subconscious control and you just look at the spot you want to hit, after a certain number of repetitions of conscious corrections, the lower brain picks up the link and the corrections are reflexive or subconscious. Now that float only moves 60 milliseconds before it's pushed back across the middle. And your float becomes way smaller, 20 times smaller. And we can trust that. No conscious input needs to be done, which allows the conscious brain to come back in here to a movement that makes the bow go off in a manner where the subconscious produces the release based on a different reflex. But anytime we're sitting there and holding and we're seeing that float, not now, or we simply shoot on the very first time we see aim, we start building a reflex to the aim. And then the release becomes subconscious, but it's out of our control.
Mm.
And that's where this comes from, that snap shooting.
You're snap shooting, yeah.
I remember when my brain built this reflex, it was so weird. I'm burning a hole like I was taught to do. I was taught to put my consciousness into aiming. The worst advice in the world. You do have to look at a small spot, by the way. You do have to aim, but it's what's called a monitoring function. It's just a keep track of function. Just look at it and then consciously drive this into an anchor and then transfer. But it was weird when this happened to me. I didn't know all this archery mechanics stuff. I'm pulling back and I'm staring at the aim, and all of a sudden the bow goes on. WTF, what the heck's going on?
Yeah.
That's when the brain picked up the link between the aim and the release. Now, because it was a subconscious release, there was no linked brace. It was just completely out of my control because I released here. I never knew when my brain was going to see aim.
Mm,
Just a terrible state of being. And there's at least half your audience that relates to this. Probably
100%.
90%.
Yeah.
Probably 90% of your audience relates to this.
It's definitely how I taught myself to shoot my recurve bow to start with.
Yeah, just to pull through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I suffered from this. I built this reflex over a period of 2 decades because I lost control of my string hand. So it gets into mental management. Now, how do we fix it? Now, back to Joel's stuff. We fix it with instructive self-talk.
Mm,
We don't think about shooting the bow until we get to the third job. We just simply set up our holding position and transfer to hold. Done does not mean shoot.
yeah.
Aim does not mean shoot. We see the first aim, we don't shoot on it, we'll let it settle, and then we start driving string tension through the string to a follow through. I'll get to the mechanism of the subconscious release in a minute. That, for somebody who's already built the reflex, is literally impossible at first. The override, I got this out of the trauma, studying the trauma world with reflexive behaviors, anger, violence. Because these guys would be in a PTSD state or a trauma state or some wounded state. And so verbal input would come down or something that their brain perceived as a threat. And they reflexively responded, say, a fight response. That's where the defense response is, I remember. And maybe it's a marital situation. The guy's just bashing his wife over the head with his words. And then his brain comes, and he means what he's saying at the moment. His brain comes down and says, oh, what did I do? I didn't really mean that. What happened to me? That's not who I am. And sometimes and he does that a few times, and he starts building a link to that response. He needs an override to that response. He's got to finally realize that he's being triggered. He's got a reflexive response going. It's a fight response, a defensive response, but he's reinforced it a few times. He's got to see that coming and start talking to himself right away and not stop talking. Oh, I'm not going to, ooh, that hurt. I'm not going to get mad this time. I'm going to stay in here. I'm going to listen to her. I'm going to listen to her words. She's going to know she's heard. Ooh, that one hurt. She's triggered and she's got a fight response going, but I'm not going to let that upset me. And I'm going to sit there and listen to her. And then when she's done, I'm going to say, sweetheart, when your brain is calmed down and mine, we're going to come back and talk to this. And then I'm going to approach her in a tactful way and tell her why I think she was wrong on this and see if I can make some progress. If you can or you can't, reflexing into violent words, if nothing else, or harsh words does not help, even if you're right. It's just not productive.
Yeah.
So that's where I learned this stuff. And the continuing talk to control a reflex is the same thing in an archery shot. All right, I'm going to come in, I'm going to find that anchor, and now I'm going to transfer a hold. Don't shoot it, don't shoot it, don't shoot it. Let it settle. Let it settle to me means let the aim quit wiggling around.
Yep.
And don't shoot. It means both things for me. So let it settle is a very powerful override to the reflex with me from instructions I'm giving myself from the executive functions, from the thinking part of the brain. So by the act of speaking to myself early in the shot, there's the hook, there's the grip, let's bring it on up here, there's anchor, transfer, hold, don't shoot it, don't let it settle, let it settle. There it is, press it through. Never stop talking. And that whole time I was overriding the reflex, release being attached to that aim.
Yeah. And when, oh, sorry, I was going to say, when I interviewed Joel Turner, that's exactly what he was saying as a concept, to say it out loud. Talk your talk out loud as you go through your shot process, and that will help you to instill it into yourself. So exactly like what you've just said of your few words that you say to yourself as you go through your shot process, he's get used to saying that out loud. And eventually what will happen is it will happen just the subconscious level as well when you go through the process.
Joel and I are very good friends, and we've taught together all over the US in clinics together. We've become very close, and he comes up with stuff and he teaches me, and I come up with stuff and lend to him.
Mhm.
And what I was able to add to his game was this, I haven't got to it yet, is the words have to be continuous to override these reflexes. And the reason is the reflexive brain, because the defense responses lie there, gets the first crack to act on any information coming in through our senses. Anything we see, hear, or feel hits the reflexive brain first. So if we're not overriding that reflex as soon as we see aim, if we're not in the act of overriding it when we see aim, the shot's going to break. That's why the continuous talk is so powerful. Because if I just come in here and say, okay, anchor, transfer, yep, there's the aim, let it settle, shot will go
Yes.
off.
Yeah.
That's why you heard from me, okay, come in here, transfer to hold, don't shoot that aim, no, let it settle, let it settle, let it settle. Okay, now press it through. Notice I never paused in my wording.
Mm.
I was overriding the reflex as it was hitting my brain. You're not shooting this. You're going to let it settle. You're not shooting this. You let it wait. It's a progression. I was able to share that with Joel on the continuous talk. He was able to share with me how powerful speaking it out loud is.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, the first thing we were talking about this at the airport, we both got dropped off. And I learned this from you. I learned this from you. And yeah, it's really cool. That's what we do. And sometimes it takes a while. He gave me some concept like, I'm not buying it. And dang it, he was right. Sometimes I think I've given him some context. Took a little while to really figure out because he's a thinker.
He is. Yeah.
And I'm a geek about this stuff too. I think about it all the time.
I almost
But
feel like with
anyways,
Joel as well, every new podcast that he does, or every time that he reiterates it and says it again, he becomes better at explaining it. So therefore it goes through better. What I've found really fascinating between just what you've said and what he says, that obviously because you've worked together, but it complements each other. So it's exactly,
Right.
it's like a synergy working together. It's really, really fascinating. And a lot of things just clicked in my head whilst you were explaining that whole process.
Yeah. I got home after that trip and of course I go in the backyard and I'm a little punchy, not really talking myself through my shots. Dang it. And it happens when I'm shooting really well and I think I'm good now. And I just shoot.
Yeah.
I can't just shoot. I built the reflex to the aim for over 20 years. It's heavily imprinted in my brain. That connection is a wide, big connection. And if I don't verbalize, I won't shoot. I'll punch out of the aim. And I was doing that. I thought I was good. No. So what was I saying to myself? Ask that question. What were you saying to yourself? Oh, well, nothing. So out loud, here in my backyard, my neighbors watching. I think I'm really weird. Anchor, transfer hold, let it settle, start pressing long, slow press it through.
Yeah.
And damn, that is powerful. And then I do it a few times. Okay, now let's just do it inside my head. And I got control of my shot back like that. So anyway, this is newer information to a lot of people, but it's so powerful. And so from the counseling world, the trauma world, from the sports psychology world, I find the same thing. Other than trauma related protocols like EMDR, this is the only tool that I have found to overcome this reflexive action. And you don't overcome it and then you're good. Because once you build a reflex, your brain's wired that way for life.
Yeah.
What you find is it becomes so much easier over time because you get confident. And confident equals conscious. It's easier to stay in full consciousness to direct your shot. So I can't just shoot.
No.
I can't just say, okay, there's the aim, let it settle and have a calm mind looking at the aim because the shot will break because the reflex is going to step in unless I'm overriding it. Here again, I'm more reflexive than the average guy because I didn't learn this stuff till way later in my life. And so it took me quite a while to learn to override that reflex to the aim.
Yes.
So I can't say let it settle. It has to be let it settle, let it settle. There it is. Now I start telling myself I want a slow movement and attention, a slow, low entrance of the bow, low intensity, longer duration movement through the strength. All right. All right. That is going to be exceedingly difficult. I want to warn your viewers, this is the tool you have to start working on. And don't have some success and then all of a sudden you're not having success and it didn't work for me. It's because you weren't saying anything to yourself. And you're going to have many more failures when you start to try to override your reflexes than you will successes. And you have to put up with it. People with really good reactions, athletically gifted people are more prone to this than anybody. And it's harder to override because they learn motor programs very quickly. They learn automatic functions really quickly. They're a gifted athlete. for those folks, it's going to be even harder.
Yeah.
So I have to warn you that just like that person that is being counseled against anger reactions or verbal or violence, they have to know that reflex is there, identify it, be aware. I just told everybody how that was built in your brain. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It was, you don't due to a lot of your athletic gifts that had happened to you
Mm.
quickly if it did, but it's just the way that 99.9% of archers lose control of strength
Yeah.
because they build a reflex to the aim because they're shooting on the first aim. This is exceptionally important information. And if you're a newer shooter, you can grab a hold of it right away. Do not shoot on the first aim and then concentrate on the movement that I'm going to tell you about now.
I was just
All
thinking
right.
that, like, obviously the people who've been shooting for longer, the old dogs, essentially the old dog you can't teach a new trick to. It's like, this is the concept of how they're going to overcome that, right? It's what they need to work
Yeah.
on probably the most for it to become a new learned skill.
Yes. And I was between the age of 50 and 60 when I was overriding this, first learning about it. And then the information I've had in the last few years from my continued study has made it fairly easy for me to do this now.
Yeah.
I wish that had me because this information has not been out there.
No.
Nobody's teaching what I'm just teaching you, but me, unfortunately. Trying to get it out there like to you and you guys and your audience, because this is needed out there. I want to make archery better for everybody. I'm never selling anything to these guys from my shop. I don't care. I want you to be a better shooter. I care about it. I was that young man looking for this stuff and dying to have it, and it wasn't available.
Mhm.
You know, it gives me great satisfaction to share this information now.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I saw an online course, great, but I'm going to try to put all the information out there in pieces as I can because it's 8 hours of instruction on the deep level course.
Yeah.
And if they want one spot, great, they can buy the course, but I'll put it out there anyway, for the most important parts of it, at least. All right. So let's get to how do we get rid of this string without just opening our fingers? You ready for another deep one, Maddie?
Love it. Yes, let's go. I
Just
do.
want me to go deep?
Yeah, I love
Okay.
it. I think the more we can get into this stuff, like, people can choose, I guess, what they take away from it, but the deeper we go, the more they've got to pull from. So why not?
The analytical types will start working on this, and maybe they're going to have success 1 or 2 shots out of 10. But if they stay on it, oh, I wasn't saying anything myself. I'll try it the next one. If they stay on it, then all of a sudden 2 and 3 out of 10 are going, and pretty soon 3 and 4 out of 10 are controlled, and pretty soon 4 out of 5 or 10. And you're looking for 80 or 90%.
Yeah.
Because we're human beings. We're not capable of perfection. If you look at the best shooters at the Lancaster barebow tournament, they're 80 or 90% in that gold circle about that big. Nobody 100%. The
Yeah.
best number 90 and the best, they can be in practice a lot, but in tournament pressure, 80, 8 out of 10 are in the gold. People are winning that tournament. We'll
Mhm.
shoot around that 7, 8, 9 out of 10.
Humans are
So
inherently lazy and always looking for an easier way out. And so
the brain is built that way.
yes.
It's not even a conscious thing. I'm lazy in life, but the brain is built to make everything easy and more efficient.
Mhm.
And archery is so different from sport. Sport always ends in a subconscious flow, whether it's a free throw or swinging a bat or a golf club, shooting it off a vision, and you just stroke it. If you try to put consciousness into that, you'll choke.
Yeah.
You line up, if you've got a golf swing, there's a shot sequence right up to the top of your backswing. You consciously control everything right to the top of your backswing, and you look at a dimple on the ball or the tee and Titleist, and you stroke it. You rely on your training from that point. That's a subconscious. If you try to be careful with that movement or put any consciousness, there's when your game blows up. So we don't. I did that actually with a nephew had a college scholarship for golf, and he'd have a bad hole, and then he was dumped. His dad called me like, "You got anything for him?" Yeah, I think so. It's first of all, I had to take his identity out of golf.
Mm.
He's gotten to be known as this great golfer in their little town. And like, I'm gonna love you for what's in here. Nobody gives a flip what they actually think about you just because you're a good golfer. They don't equate that being you're a good guy because of this. So I just that. And I started talking about informing of this. You've got to just rely on your training and just stroke it from there. Your consciousness is right to the top of the backswing, and then you stroke it, and you get it's skewed vision, so you have to look. Anyway, that won't go through the whole basic lesson I gave him, but he called me a couple days later. He said, "Oh, Tom," he goes, "I hit every fairway. I didn't lay up on one putt." I said,
Yeah.
so
Transferable.
various aspects for various sports, but in precision shooting or shooting at a non-moving target, it all comes down to a conscious movement at the end. And sport in general comes down to a subconscious movement in the end, or for the entire time. It's just all reflexive activity. That's
Yeah.
trained in the conscious mind first. So anyways, all right. How in the heck do we shoot a bow and get string through our fingers as a surprise?
Mm-hmm.
Never understood. Now, they just taught it. So Olympians, Olympic training centers don't know this because they shoot every arrow in practice and every arrow competition based on a click.
Mm-hmm.
And the click, what they've done is they've attached a reflex to the release based on a click. So there's no reflex to the aim because all they're doing is they're under here is expansion or continuing to press on that end range of movement, and they create about 1 millimeter movement, and that clicks. And it took 5 or 15 shots for the brain to connect the release to the click, and they don't have those target panic issues.
Yeah.
Because they have a release trigger, which is the click, not the aim, right? Because they're just looking at the aim. Joel was unbelievable for the world and the country over here because he was teaching people release triggers. And like within 3 hours was managing this reflex to the aim. We didn't term it that way these days. It came from these studies of late, but it manages it because when you have a clicker on your bow, there's a neon sign that's hanging off the limb that says aim doesn't mean shoot.
Yeah.
There's a whole other job to do, which is to keep pulling until it clicks and then you release. Now, when you just put, as advice to people, when you just put a clicker on a bow, those first few shots are ugly because they're all linked braces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're informing your body when the bow's going off. So you're going to have a linked brace and those shots are not going to be accurate until the brain links up, develops that neural link between the click and the release at the subconscious level. Because it's click conscious release, pretty soon it's click release at the subconscious level because your brain did the same thing it did with aim. It linked it to the click.
So this is very fresh in my mind because Colin from Outlaw Bows came over on the weekend and brought his bow. And I was using his setup with button clicker on the handle. But the problem was that it was set up for his hand, not for my hand. So obviously that slight little adjustment, and it wouldn't work. I kept essentially snap shooting because it would click even when I was drawing. It was click. And I'm like, don't use that one. Use the next one. And then it'd click again. I'm like, no, not that one, not that one. So it was a very interesting process. But he obviously explained it. You do have to play with where the positioning is for it to be able to work correctly for yourself.
Into more pressure if it's going too hard, off of pressure if it's going too easy. Yeah. I am the creator of that solid grip.
Correct. Yes.
But and that was a patented item now because it's brilliant. What we do is attach the release to the click here again, but it's within a proper archery movement. A string clicker, it takes movement of the string to make it click. And so you have to leave some movement here in the back end to make it click. So we'll put the click inside the transfer hold move. So we'll anchor and then we'll have this movement of transfer to hold like this. We put the click in that movement. So we get our shoulder alignment set. We come into anchor and somewhere in the middle of that movement of transfer to hold, this rotational movement, that's where we put the click. But anyway, with the grip trigger or a limb-mounted clicker, those first few are ugly because you have the link brace until the brain picks up the link between the subconscious release and the click. And all of a sudden, it's like magic because the arrow will finally go right where it's aimed, uninfluenced by muscle contraction linked to the bow going off. Sense?
Yeah.
So, triggerless, though, which most people want to shoot based on a reflex that we build to string pressure. And I'll show you how it trains. So let me grab, I didn't know we were doing a mechanics podcast, so I didn't have stuff ready, but let me get
Sorry, mate. Yeah.
It'll take me a moment, buddy.
That's all right. Tom's just trying to find some form of a string training aid, I'm sure.
So I've got a string training aid. The first one I'm going to use is just a stringer cord.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do with the stringer cord is I'm going to put my 3 fingers in the middle of it. And then I'm going to shove my hand out until it replicates my draw line. Okay. Now this is where we're focused.
Yeah. 3 fingers on the string, pulling back.
Now watch this. I'm going to produce a follow through, but you will not see my fingers open. So I'm going to press back tension this way, and then I'm on the end range of movement, and I'll just press on that end range of movement. And then I'm going to accelerate that through the string. It's going to trace my face to a place over my shoulder, and I'm not going to open my fingers.
Yeah.
They do open, but it's so fast, you
don't
can't even
realize it.
reduce that pressure. Here we go. Press it through. So in my shot, I'm going to develop my holding position. Yep, there's my aim. All right, start your pressure. I'm going to build this pressure through to the finish. With me?
Yeah.
So we teach this in the shot by a simple drill. We get a fixed cord like this, and then we have people trace their face, and it's going to land somewhere over their shoulder and look back. We'll build a visualization of a golf ball that they're going to snag, or some visualization helps, because now we know our direction of tension or movement is that way, which naturally engages back muscles.
Yeah.
So we'll just say, okay, build that pressure a little bit by pressing your shoulder back, and then rapid speed movement, hyper speed, snag that ball.
Yeah, got you. Back to
Essentially,
I was going to say essentially.
Yet, and it'll be real sticky.
Yes. Yeah.
But 100% of the time, the brain will figure out how to shoot the signal to your flexor muscles, they lie right up here, or flash of relaxation, at which time the string goes, bloop. And so if you're maintaining that, you're just holding extension on the bottom of this first bone here in your fingers, but flexion in these. So we have extension, flexion. We're doing both with this hook.
Yeah.
Extension here, but we have flexion here. We're just holding enough pressure and flexion with this extended finger group to hold the string. And then we just press it through. Now, as the person does it, it goes from sticky and ouch to better. And then pretty soon it's just, okay, there it is. Cause he's just holding enough flexion to hold the string, and that kind of enhances it. And he just, boom, there's his follow through.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that visualization you said about grabbing the ball behind. That is a good concept of keeping that claw essentially in position. Yes.
When I was at Fleming Training Center, I must have heard Coach Lee say, focus on the finish position, focus on the follow through position. I must have heard him say it 100 times, that when we're driving this tension, we're focused on this finish position.
Yeah.
It was so important to him. He said it so much it turned into white noise, and I ignored it. And I was doing a level 1 and 2 certified course, and I said, let me review my notes from Fleming Training Center. And every paragraph had focus on the finish position. I was writing down what he said. I've never done that. So I put my books down in the backyard, and boom, man, did I clean up my release.
Yeah.
Or my follow through.
Yeah. So I feel like that's an interesting coaching thing in general. So many coaches stick to their cues. They've got their cues that they always say, but then how do you visualize that for yourself? Or how do you make it very visual for someone else?
Yes, that's a mistake from newer coaches. I made this mistake. That's a mistake from high-level shooters that then become coaches. They're going to portray what worked for their mind.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always, how many arguments have you had in your life where, man, we're saying the same damn thing. It was vernacular, the way we were thinking it. We're saying the same dang thing. We finally get to that. We've been arguing for a half hour. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But those words don't equate to our brains in the same way. It's so common. As a coach, I have to have 5 ways to tell a person to do a movement or to learn a concept. If I'm in a clinic with Ben, I'm going to switch and let Ben work with this guy. He'll see the problem. He'll see the problem that I was working on. I don't even tell him the problem. He's going to see it, and then he's going to use his words. And so many times is like, I got it.
Yeah.
Ben was to describe it in the way that his brain, and that guy attached to that guy's brain. So when I'm doing clinics with different coaches, I switch commonly, because there's usually 1 or 2 things where the person's struggling getting the concept of, or the movement correct or whatever. And that other coach will word it in a different way, and the light bulb will go off.
Yeah.
That's the art of coaching.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So when we're thinking about this movement here, I cue it off pressing my shoulder back. I actually drill it because we're doing those exercises. So press back, push forward, press back.
Yeah.
So the cue, actually the word press means a movement, because I press back, press. So I'll start with that one. And then maybe I'll be real external. Try to drive that elbow that way.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll
behind the back rather than pulling down.
on this. USA Archery called that land two. Drive land two behind you. That's more internal. I go to the shoulder, even more internal, press the shoulder through. It can go completely internal and say, feel that little retraction in your scapula, just drive that retraction through the string. That's completely internal. That's 3 or 4 different ways for a person to think about it right there. Here's another simple one. Trace the face. Trace the face. That simple one there. That 3rd grade trace the face worked really good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because if they're tracing the face, they've got to be going that way. And so they're going to be engaging back muscles. That little golf ball, it's like a 3rd grade visualization. I don't care. It works.
Yes.
It cues the mind to use the scapular retractors to drive that motion. So when we're teaching this, we're trying to keep the body still. A stretch band here. We're trying to have the student, as soon as we get this movement down, we do it with that cord, and then we do it as a stretch band. And so the stretch band will expose them. So I'll get them in an anchor and I'll say, press harder, press harder. I should not see movement, because if the direction of movement or the tension is in the correct way, we're on the end range of movement.
Yes.
So there should be no perceptible movement. So I'll say, press harder. And if I see this going on, I'll say, great, we know what's going on now. Your brain splits neural outflow all the time to all the muscles to make any task easier. If you're lifting up a weight from the ground, it's going to involve your quads, your core, your upper traps, or it's going to split neural to all that to make the task easier.
Yeah.
So the task is to move this hook through the string, and this motion is new to you, just pressing back this way. It's going to naturally put some neural outflow to the shoulder stuff, and that's going to produce that. So it can give me 80% this and 20% this, or I want 100% this. So end range of motion tells me I got it right, because when I'm pressing, it doesn't move, and I feel that tension right inside my shoulder blade. So I press that tension through, it keeps that release tight. Now, say we're shooting fatigued, and those back muscles, your brain's shifting among those back muscles to make the movement, but now those are toast. You've done push-ups, you can't do one more push-up. These muscles can't drive that perfect release one more time. Guess what the brain does? Let me get you some help from back here, buddy. And then instead of this release, we get this release, because it gave me 80% of this and 20% of that.
Yeah, got you. So hence even more so why when we're talking about that holding position, that extra pull back position that you're talking about becomes so much more, it's repeatable when you do it, when you actually pull back into position and then set the shoulder compared to, I really like that you make that a separate movement. I think it's such an important little part, obviously.
That movement is called transfer to holding. It transfers
to hold. Yeah.
Load that it can from the shoulder into the back muscles, and provides the best alignment available to you. And it sets the direction of tension to the follow through, because that's
correct. Yes, it's already the same motion that we're trying to repeat then now as we release the shot. Yeah.
Correct. So when we're first learning this movement to the subconscious release, we're forcing it, and we want to keep it like high intensity, low duration at first. We can't, but eventually at the other end of the spectrum, it's very fine motor control. It's very low intensity movement, longer duration. Because you don't want to have big input to the bow. When you're trying to shoot a 10 ring like that in the barebow world, this pressure has to be very low muscle intensity. So you're going to have to use a lot of fine motor control. So it's just press through.
Yeah.
And then the follow through is just inertia. At that point, we're not forcing it along here at all. It just breaks, just flops back there. It's like the end of the tug of war. If you're pulling on a rope really hard and let go, you'd fall back. This just falls back. And what actually happened is your upper arm bone is just rotating around, because that's the way it was being pressed.
Yeah.
So we press it back here. And then their upper arm bone is just what we call humeral rotation. That's the only remaining movement. And so as a coach, when I see this break and come here, I know that Archer was using the right muscles, producing a thought movement that created the direction of movement and tension that I wanted. If this flies out, he's engaging some muscles we don't want.
Yeah.
So we have to address that with a cue. Like you talk about cues, that's brilliant, because you're a movement instructor. So you know how powerful cues are, a way to think about the movement to produce the movement we want.
Yeah.
That's the art of a coach, and that's the art of what you do too.
You used to, don't anymore.
Always. So get that person to do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, The reflex is right here. So if I locked my shoulder and didn't allow a follow through, when I move from this position and I can move it an extra 0.5 millimeter right there, that's where the shot breaks from. And then you see linear humor rotation because we're pressing on the inner range of movement. So just that little extra creates a reflex to the flexor muscles, string blows through, follow through happens.
Yeah.
That's why it can be so dang accurate, because we're operating off the end of range of movement, We've replicated our drawing. We provide a good alignment. And then the pressure we put on the string ends up linear at the hand. It's rotational at the elbow, but a linear in the hand. And the rotation of the elbow after the tug of war ends is going to be rotational and downward a little bit or a lot. All right. And that's what we're looking for. The follow through, we have to force it. Then it becomes a natural result of the tension going away, and it just rotates that way.
Yeah. That makes sense.
We don't want to go into fine motor control too quick, because then when we go a little soft, we don't keep the pressure through, and we get a little micro collapse. You do that, speed up the movement. Eventually, we want a very slow input movement through the string to a follow. That's when accuracy goes through the ceiling.
So if we're not seeing the finish position being the same as the start position, they're opening the hand and finishing with their arm back like this, meaning that the palm is now open, the finger's now extended. Is that a big problem for?
If the fingers are just opening on their own, they stay there like this, that's probably okay.
Okay.
Any conscious extension, that's definitely a problem, because you're going to inform your brain when the shock's coming. Somebody said, isn't this movement to a string like a now moment? That's a good question from a student. I like, brilliant question.
Yeah.
Yes, no. I'll know in an extremely narrow window when the bow's going off, but I can't tell you exactly. That's the key. So I'll know it within the window of this much press through, but somewhere in the word through, that thing broke.
Yes.
It was out of my control at that point. I was creating a movement that creates the reflex, that creates the release generated from the subconscious. That's the key. And you saw good archers in the day. I saw great archers. They'd be anchored up. They had a good aiming method, and they would produce a follow through. That's what they did. I saw people shoot with a follow through that looked like this, but the next shot went like this, and the next shot went like this. They did it the same every way, and the way they released the arrow was tension through the string.
Yes.
A fantastic archer do this in Lancaster. But the next shot was, here's the commonality in it. It was pressure through the string.
Yeah.
And whatever they did to this, and whatever way it affected their bow tune, they tuned the bow to that, and they adjusted the aim to that. And their mental control was so good that they could separate from the aim and create a movement that made the bow go off, and they were exceptionally accurate.
But once again, it was very repeatable. It was the same process every single time. Yes.
It had the components. It had good alignment. It had a separation from aim, and they had a consistent movement that made the bow go off as a surprise.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic. Now, the potential of this is better than the potential of this.
Correct. Yes.
Well, was that person reaching their actual potential? Not really, because they're taking bow out of tiller every time, and then and then that changes a little bit. This can't change that much.
Yeah.
All these other movements can change a lot. With me, brother?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's all making a lot of sense. It's very interesting just tying all the pieces together. And for some people, they might look at mechanics and be like, it's so boring. But really, it's the foundations of everything that we do in archery. Yeah. The biggest aha moment that I really had from our little conversation here, Tom, is you talking about the pressing of the arrow. Just pushing when someone's got the arrow and they're holding it to their eye, and you push their front hand. That was like the biggest, of course. It's such a simple insight for me, but it's such a big aha moment. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how simple verbalizations, you go, duh, I should have known that, but you get in real. What I do a lot in lessons, because a lot of this information out there, but when we're in that and teaching it, I have to bring the stuff they already know to the top of their thoughts where they can use it. So if I repeat stuff to people, I'm fine with that because repetition helps you internalize this knowledge of these things where the importance of it is brought to the top of your thoughts again. But that last movement, I'll just get my hands on their hand and I'll just move it an eighth inch either way, which is just like this.
Yeah.
They're like a holding mackerel. Now I see what's going on. So if we can produce linear tension, this tension that goes straight through the string, and we're aligned and we're producing linear tension to target. So we're not breaking that alignment or that tension. Everything goes to or from the target. We have no choice but to hit the middle.
Yeah.
And so that's where alignment comes in. That's where
The
stability,
structural foundation. Yeah.
structural foundation, that fully retracted place on the front barn that's low. Push this up here, there's a lot of movement available to
Since
you.
that shoulder lifts. Yeah, exactly.
Not much movement available to you.
Yeah.
When you're locked into a transfer to holding or that full scap retraction and you move it through, there's not much other movement available to you. So there's not much miss available to you either. And then when you just simply consciously press it through, you're creating a subconscious release. You can't tell the exact moment it's going on because you've consciously fully removed yourself from the aim. You're not trying to catch the perfect aim. You're just trusting that by looking at it, it'll stay there. And by looking at it, it will stay there 20 times better than you trying to control it.
Yeah.
And so these things are simple, but not necessarily easy.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of repetitions and a lot of failures. It's a war, and you're just looking to win battles at first. You got to win the battle. And it'll work. I've heard so many people, I tried gap shooting. I got 2 or 3 good off and then it didn't work for me.
Yeah. Like,
it's because you gave up because what you didn't, you had no awareness of where the miss was coming from. You had no awareness that when you were trying to catch that now precise aim, you were inducing a muscle contraction that gave you no chance to hit it. You had no awareness that separating from the aim and consciousness on a movement that made it go off as a surprise, so to speak, was the key to it. And so I get it. Well, I'm one of those guys. I tried a precise aim long ago and I didn't know any of this stuff. And of course I abandoned it right away. Didn't get it.
yeah.
Because I was trying to catch that aim every time. And then I was inducing a muscle contraction. And of course I'm not accurate. So that's the core reason people try it and fail. Which is most people without this knowledge we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it makes sense because then you've got no repeatable process. You've got no repeatable shot from word go.
Right.
Your aim's going to be different. Exactly. Yeah. Every single time you're getting a different response. So you're training yourself off of an imperfect practice from word go.
So if I can build this process to be repeatable, then we add a name to it. So it's process first. Because you got to now put a name to it. I don't care if they hit left, right, high, or low. It doesn't matter. I'm looking for a group that shows repeatable process. And there's always going to be 1 or 2 out of the group, but we're going to judge on what's hitting to the left. That's probably because you're with the length of your forearms relative to your humerus, you're pulling the string to the right side of your eye. So you're looking at the tip and it's off angle. So now we have to tip the bow over, that angle's here. We have to tip that bow over to get the arrow to come under the eye to the bullseye, arrow bullseye alignment. We might have to induce a cant if the string's over your right side. So we tip it over and then that arrow is above the pivot point of the bow. And so it moves over to the right under your eye. There it is. Now I have alignment. Now I can figure out the gap because now I can get back in the middle line again. Some people, if they have relatively long short arms, their anchor is going to be further forward. They can get string blur. They can hold a perfectly vertical bow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting.
Now we can make adjustments. Okay, you're grouping to the left. Let's induce a little cant. There's your cant. Now we get them to the middle. They're still a little high. Let's build that 3 more inches of gap on your aim. And so now with a repeatable process, aim means something. And we can see what's going on because we have a result linked to this process. Now we just make adjustments within our sight picture, our head position to adjust the aim.
Yeah, it's so interesting that what you just talked about, the cantilevering or finding a position, because I just naturally went to start doing that where I just lean into it, the shot a little bit more.
Yeah. Most people find that one just intuitively. Yeah, I can see over the arrow now.
Yeah.
You lean it over. Well, there it is. And you're down the middle.
Yeah, reason for it.
You need to that verbalized because what they'll do is they'll lean their head into the string, get their eye over, and then they get a face scrape.
Yeah.
I go, why don't I scrape my face? And they got down, and then they go, duh, fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Tell me more about RMS and the RMS gear that you guys do. And we breezed over the clickers before because I did want to talk to you more about what you guys have on offer there. but the concept of the clickers and then everything else that you guys do as well.
Yeah, RMS Gear is a business I started. This is our 30th anniversary this year, actually.
Wow, congrats.
It was in a building. It wasn't intended from the start. This business is a complete accident, honestly. I had rented a building. I was a real estate appraiser, and I had a staff and a secretary, and had a building that a friend. It was a home originally. It was converted into a realty office with business zoning, and then he bought it. And then I was looking for bigger space, and he talked me into leasing it from him for my appraisal staff. And here I was in this building. Man, I got all this extra space, this commercial zoning. I had to try some. My kids are getting towards college. I had to try a second business. And I perceived a niche in high-end optics and King of the Mountain wool clothing, and was thinking all kinds of stuff. I was thinking of film development.
Yeah.
Because we had to develop thousands of dollars worth of film to attach to our appraisals of pictures of houses and stuff. And man, that was a bit of a bad one. It went to digital 2 years later.
Lucky you didn't go down that route.
And anyways, we had a window right by the street, so we could do a coffee drive up or a snack drive up, and it had a kitchen right there, like a built-in drive up. That would have been a winner because they're all over the place now. They weren't available back then.
Yeah.
But anyway, I came up with this niche products theme, and then it could be on the side, and I got a resale license, and that's stuff. I had no experience to reach out, build an appraisal bill. I could do that. What a dumb thing that was. And then the knife distributor salesman comes in, like, put some knives in here. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be good. And I bought a bunch of knives. And anyways, but I had a wholesale license now, so I was making orders and buying feathers 100 at a time and everything in bulk. But they'd be behind the counter, and guys would come in, hey, I shoot a bow too. You sell me some of them feathers? Like, sure. Oh, you got some of those found out? Yeah, sure. Can you order me them? Sure. Guy came in and says, I got this bow I need to sell. Can I hang it on your wall on consignment? Sure. Probably in the heart for goodness. That was a dedicated traditional archery is part of my lifestyle for sure.
Yeah.
30 years ago. And then then the guy made me move. His wife wanted it for a boutique, which he never did. He's a rich guy.
Yeah.
And they're pretty selfish. I had a long lease. He goes, I got better lawyers than you, Tom.
Oh, God.
Friend of mine, I'm just out. I moved to a retail space, lost a ton of money. Moved to a cheap retail space and started to crack at us. It's a long process. We were in this little hole in the wall for 17 years as a traditional archery shop. And my boys got into college and joined. I was about to give it up. And they said, no, let's try it, Dad. And then Tommy integrated the internet, and we started putting bows that were on consignment on that, selling that in mail order. And then we just hit to the spot. We can't scale this location to the three of us to make a living ever.
Yeah.
And so it's 6 years old. I signed a lease in a different place. It was retail warehouse in the back, and I borrowed a few $100,000, and we remodeled the place and built the archery range. And
yeah, wow.
And then it took 8 years to crack into break even from there. It's been a long haul, but I worked there for free for 8 years. And so it's been a long haul, but we built what we got now. So we have archery range with about 22 lanes on one side, and we've got a smaller one, like 12 lanes on the other. And on that side, we have a compound shot because I knew we'd never make it without compound bows. I knew nothing about the modern compound bow.
Yeah.
And they're out, guy will run it, did all the credit apps. We've been in business for a long time, had really good credit. So I was able to get into most of the big compound bow manufacturers. But by then, we were a total leader in traditional archery. Any given time, there's 400 to 600 traditional bows, longbows, recurves in there at any given time. And it's primarily built on the consignment model. So we have tons of custom traditional bows in there all the time, and they come and go. We send them all over the country. We sold a ton to Australia and other countries, but mostly the US. And now we become a trusted source for people to sell their bows. They'll just ship them to us, and so when the bow sells, it goes to a scan tag that goes to a system. Every Saturday, my wife cuts a check for 75% of what it's sold for, send a check to a guy. So it's no fuss, no fuss. They send us the bow. We talk about price. We put it on the internet, hang it on our wall. And when it sells, they just get a check, shows up in the mail. So it's been a really business model. Took us a long time to develop the trust nationwide to send us those bows, but we've been doing it for a long time now, 20 years. That's been a good business model for us. And then we do a lot of mail order. If you look at our website, rmsgear.com, for accessories, arrows, we carry all the major manufacturers of arrow makers. We get a lot of custom bows, a lot of Boyers, say if they can make more bows that can sell, they'll consign a lot to us. They sold a lot of famous bows that were out in the Eastern US, and they wanted to get some exposure. Our shop was the place to get that. So we sold for a number of years, and then that guy got popular out here too in this side of the country. And then he couldn't make as many bows as he'd sell, and we shake hands, and that was a great relationship for both of us.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that kind of thing works. Some bowyers just didn't want to deal with the public. They just like to make bows. They just bring us their bows to sell for them, and they get checked in the mail.
They're interesting types, some of them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of guys that are well-heeled that love buying a new custom bow. They'll pay for just a little bit, and they'll just send them to us to sell because they can recoup a good chunk of their money.
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of people like that. We get some really nice bows in there. Virtually new custom-made high-end bows all the time.
Yeah.
Everything from the old classics, the Bears and the Pearsons and the old 60s and 70s, mostly 60s manufactured bows, all the way to custom bows from custom makers today.
Yeah.
As a traditional presence, we're all still bigger in that than the other side. So there's two sides, and we've got some excellent techs over there. We've got pretty much every major banner compound. We do some mail order over there, but trying to build the mail order on the traditional side, and it's to afford that retail space. That's a tougher challenge because our competitors are all mail order. And how do people beat mail order? Price. And so
it's a race to the bottom very quickly.
Yeah, it's a race to the bottom, and that does not support a retail location.
Not at all. Yes.
Yeah, are priced. So it's a real it's real challenging sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. No, I absolutely love that. I'm in marketing and I just love talking business in general. So just hearing that whole story is very fascinating to me, especially I think the concept of business, many people see success. They don't see the 20, 30 years that happened beforehand, the 8 years of you working for free, all the things that you've had to try to do to make it actually come to fruition. I think there's a lot of tie-overs even to what we've just talked about with archery in general. It's like it wasn't just a straight off process. There's so many trial and error pieces that need to happen before you get to a stage where you're like, okay, I'm comfortable now.
Exactly. Or a heck of a lot more failures to start with than successes. Yeah. And you gotta be tolerant to that, that know it's a progression. It's just something you keep working on. And you have the right information of what to work on.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Something will get really good.
Yeah, definitely. So when did the clickers, especially the hand clickers, when did you actually come to that? Like was that when you started training at the Olympics, or the Olympic Center, or what happened there?
Well, actually, it came out of a trip I was on. Joel and I were doing shooting lessons at the Pope and Young Convention in Phoenix. And so he flew into Denver and we spent some time. There's a 13-hour drive to Phoenix. We spent 3 or 4 days there. Then we drove back. And that was one of the times where Joel and I got to know each other exceptionally well. And we had another guy with us named Buddy Gould. And Buddy's a custom bow maker here in America. He builds poison dart longbows, and a brand that we gave to him when the warrior passed away that made some nice recurves and longbows. And we were looking for the right warrior, and we picked out Buddy to do it. They're called Rampart longbows and recurves. So he took that brand on too. But he became good friends. And so he rode along with Joel and I. We had a blast. We had so much fun together. But on the way back, we're talking about what would be a good way to do it. And I don't know, it was Buddy or Joel, or I can't remember who came up with the idea of putting a click into the pressure into the grip. And so that was I was thinking about that for a long time. And 10 years later, somebody had a dog clicker. You squeezed it and it clicked, right? Yeah. And I taped it to the handle of my bow and ran in the rain, held my hand off a click and aimed and then pressed click and did that 6 times, and I could not miss the middle.
Yeah. Wow.
And I said, I think I've got, I said, Alex, young man working for me, real smart young guy, real good coach too. Alex, come here, look at this. You won't believe this. This is freaking money. And he's trying to, come on, man. We're both like amazed. And he goes, I can make it better. He went and he tore the box apart and he got the little deflectable metal out of the middle of it. And he bridged it up on 2 sides and taped it down. Let's try this. And now it was sleek and meant for the hand. Keep this under your hat. Nobody figured this out yet. I just found it by accident. And then with some few trusted people like Joel and Matt from the Push, and just a very small number of people that turned out to be very honorable and trustable. My intuition was good about these folks. And so it took us, and Alex worked on this a lot, and Buddy was part of it. So I put Alex and Buddy on the patent, and I spent like 20 grand or 18 actually for a patent.
Yeah.
We finally came down to some fixtures that we had to make dies for. They were like $2,000 a piece. And then we made it into a very slim profile thing that would go on. And then we had 3 sizes for these 3 dies. And so it was just a year-long process to get it into production and get the patent done. And I was of an age where they said, you can have an accelerated patent within 6 months because you're old. You don't have as much time to enjoy your patent. And it was like, yeah, I'll use that.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
So it must be 6 years ago in development because I'm 71 now.
So you don't look a day over 50, to be honest, Tom.
You're kind. You're kind.
You kept your youth. It's good. Archery does good
I
things.
think the hunting lifestyle has helped me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, it's a long story, and we didn't know how to price it. Some famous guys were like, that should be $50, but we knew it doesn't cost that much to produce. It costs so much to get the patent. And if we have it cheap, or never even recoup my. So we came up with the price of $35. And that's also allowed me to make a big dent in recouping all that money I spent. But also it allows me, if you screw it up because you're mashing it with torque, I'll just send you a new one. Because I want people to get the benefit. Because once they find the spots, holy mackerel, it changes your life if you got a problem with reflexive actions like target panic related to the release linked to the aim. It's an amazing tool because it makes you produce correct archery movements. And that was the key to this type of trigger.
Yeah.
Because it makes you replicate the grip. If you don't put the grip in the same place on that button, so put the button related to a good grip, move it in or off of pressure until you find the spot where you can stay off of it just enough to get into holding and aim. And then as you start ear expansion, it creates enough pressure to pop, which creates the subconscious release. All of those acts are proper archery movements. It creates expansion to follow through. It creates consistency. It avoids the linked brace of the now moment because you have this thing on your bow and aim doesn't mean shoot anymore. After aim, I have to keep pressing till this thing pops. And because I'm pressing, increasing back tension when it pops, I get a good follow through and a repeatable shot. I have to repeat the grip or else it's going to pop too easy or too hard. So it makes you replicate. People don't know how much this or this in your dog
100%. When I talked to George Riles, he gave a really good example of that online. Like he showed it in the video format and everything. It was so interesting. The process and the repeatability of what he teaches was also very informative.
Yes. That's a level when people have been after it for a while, especially going in the barebow world where that much is a point, that much is a point. That's 2 points. That's where this attention to detail, that's fun coaching for me, is getting down to the really nitty gritty.
Yeah.
But I'll teach anybody from a rank beginner, somebody who's never shot, to a very elite level. And I enjoy it all. I enjoy it when they start having the fruits of their hard work in this thing. That's when I really enjoy it. And then, okay, what's the next step? Okay, let's get into this now. Because it's building blocks.
Yeah.
It's building blocks.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I really love that.
And shooting barebow myself, I found out how much just a little pressure on the grip can move you that much, let alone repeating your grip. But anyway, the grip trigger does a good job of training proper archery movements and repeatability. Because if you don't grip the same way, it won't act the same way.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah,
So,
like I was saying, when I was using the one that Colin brought on the weekend, I was trying to game it because it wasn't set up for me. So therefore I had to change things to try and make it work. I was like, okay, I can see the exact concept of where if it was set up correctly, how much difference it would make. Yeah.
Yeah. Colin's a good guy. We was at one of my clinics and got to know him there, and then communicate quite regularly.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, I got him to make up some bows for my daughters.
Nice.
And so that's been really cool, just as a process, getting them used to archery. And we've got little toy bows that they shoot inside quite regularly. And the interest is right there because they see dad doing it all the time. So that they're more leaning into it now, which is very cute. It's fun. They're 3 and 5. So it's good to get them into it.
He made a 50 style recurve for me, and it is a shooter. It is gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a touch heavy for me. My son will take over that bow.
Yeah.
Because he's younger and a lot stronger, but he made me a bow I can't remember the model name. I wish I could, because it's a shooter.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous performing bow, smooth and fast.
Yeah.
And gorgeous. His fit and finish has gotten so good. He's becoming a really top-notch bowyer these days. He's turned.
He really has. Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. I went out to his house once and just to see the process of what he goes through. He actually brought all of his, not all of his bows, but he brought a heap of bows up the other day and just showed me through all of them. He's got a new prototype he's working on that looks incredible. Yeah, it's really cool just to see the process that he goes through with the bow. And I interviewed him on the podcast and just going through the motions of his background in engineering, how he thinks about bows, what he's trying to take from traditional to make it more modernized and everything. It's a cool concept.
Yeah. Yeah. He's an analytical person. He's got that
very
mindset.
Yeah.
He wants to dig in and know things 4 layers deep. That's for sure. And quite an excellent shooter too.
Yeah, definitely. Mate, it wouldn't be much of a bow hunting podcast if we didn't talk a little bit about hunting. What do you love to hunt? What's your bread and butter, and what's your animal that you love to hunt the most?
Okay, they've been the same until probably last couple years as I age, but elk hunting has been our bread and butter and animal we like to hunt the most. We've got a 30-day, a month-long season basically in Colorado. And so I've got sons that are exceptional elk hunters, bow hunters. When they were little teeny dudes, man, the season would end. And you know how little boys' voices can make a high-pitched noise really easy?
Yeah.
They can make a perfect elk bugle with their voice, but it's a mile or two up the ridge to get them to where I knew the elk were after seasons were done. But I knew there'd be elk here at a certain time. And so ever since they were little guys, I'd get them, I'd be holding one hand and one little dude be riding, or one little dude get tired. So he'd be riding on my shoulders. And then this little dude would get tired. And okay, you got to walk down. I'd get the other dude and I'd get them up the top of the ridge. Okay, bugle down there, and they get after. So they had no help, but they couldn't help but end up being elk hunters.
Of course.
And so as soon as they were old enough to get a license, they had a bow in their hand, a longbow recurve. Tommy liked longbows, Daniel liked recurve. And I'll tell you now, Tommy lives in the Midwest now, so he didn't get the chance to elk hunt like Danny. But Danny kills a bull virtually every year. He's had a couple of runs of 8 or 9 elk in a row. Our hunters don't have the chance to get as good as your hunters. You so much to hunt. You can hunt all year round. You get so many high pressure shots or pressure shots because you're shooting at an animal. We just don't get to do that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Our serial hunter, we're training all year round and we're getting in shape to shoot at the most 5 or 6 animals.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll get our elk, and then we're going to hunt deer. And I have deer in Nebraska and Wisconsin. I may get to shoot, and there's extra doe tags you can get. I may get to shoot 2 or 3 deer in a year. I'll go to Texas and pig hunt, and I may get to shoot 1 or 4 or 5 pigs at the very most during a few days. I get bear hunt. I may bear hunt that year and get a shot at a bear. I may also draw a moose tag every 4 or 5 years, and I get a cow moose. We just don't have that level of experience your hunters get, or that amount of time hunting. I hunt probably 40 days a year. You guys are hunting 150 days a year or more.
Yeah.
And that experience piles up, that time with live animals. And my friend Ben Mayer, before last year, we hadn't really hunted together. And I just let him take the lead. I was blown away at just how good a hunter Ben Mayer is. You know what I mean? Because he is just so savvy. He's got so many days in the wood. He's killed so many animals with a longbow in particular, that I was so pleasantly surprised to spend time with him. I learned a lot from him, especially in that terrain and those animals. It was really fun. I have no doubt he'd come out here with a high country mule deer hunt or spot stock hunt and just be one of those guys that gets it done year after year.
Yeah.
With that skill set he's got for hunting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Like, we see a lot of Australian hunters go over for elk and are often successful. And I think it attributes to, yes, A, how much they get to hunt, B, how much they get to be around live animals. As a concept for you guys, obviously, like, having to pay for every animal, that puts a lot of pressure on people. And then only having certain opportunities where you could, one shot and being done. Like, it's all of that external pressure that you then need to learn how to talk to yourself correctly when you're going through that process to make sure that it's not going to be a stuff up. Which is where I guess obviously all the things that you guys are teaching is so important for, a repeatable process as well. But yeah, it is always interesting to me. It's only really something that I've come to recently of raising the standard of hunting is what I've always tried to do. Raising the standard of bow hunting in particular is what I've always tried to do with the podcast. It was an own journey for myself to be able to become a better bow hunter in general, but then realizing that standard here in Australia is actually very high. Like what we've got as a foundation of being able to hunt every day is amazing, but then we've got some really amazing people within the community that are saying like, no, do better, be better, and make sure that we're as a community doing the best for bow hunting in general, because really hunting has always been under attack here in Australia. It's not as common as of a process as in New Zealand or what it is in America, where it's very ingrained in the community. It's an outsider world here. You're an outsider for doing hunting in Australia. It's all almost unheard of, which is bizarre because we've got so many huntable creatures here. Like we've got so many pest species. And even, yeah, it's very fascinating just getting into hunting only 6 years ago for me, just how much it's changed my worldview, how much it's really become a lifestyle, how much it's actually influenced my political view as well, and how much I'm like, no, we need to protect the land that we've got, protect the farmers that we've got, protect all these different aspects. It's very interesting just how much it shapes your worldview in general.
I'm right down the line with you there, buddy. I am right down the line. We have an element in our left in our state that is really anti-hunting. In Colorado, we got a governor with an anti-hunting husband that and then they changed the commission that makes the rules for our Division of Wildlife. They got a wolf ballot initiative that barely passed. They got all kinds of money coming from other states, and they got this thing passed. We didn't have a good pushback against it. We did the next time when it came to mountain lion hunting. That failed miserably, but now we've got wolves. We've heard that person literally say in public, we got wolves voted in. Now we can finally manage our big game population without hunters. Literally said it in public after it got through. So our rights are being attacked in a lot of the same ways. Got a lot of Western states that aren't like that. I think Washington and now Colorado, our rights are being attacked heavily, and we're trying to defend them. It's broken my heart to see what's going on in your country. Then I get to learn about when I spend time with Ben there. So much opportunity and so much wasted resource.
Yeah,
I had a kangaroo steak. What outstanding meat that
yeah,
was. It
absolutely.
blew me away. And those can only be hunted by this, and you can leave them lay. And what a magnificent resource for I don't know if you have a population that would benefit by that protein, but I got to imagine you do.
100% we do. And that's something I brought up plenty of times on the podcast, but the Greens Party, the one that's meant to be for the environment and for everything, that really they're corrupt as they come, but they are the ones that shut down the food bank setup that was proposed of, hey, let's shoot venison, let's shoot anything that we've got access to, like the pest species. Let's shoot all the deer that we've got and give it to the homeless. No, you can't do that.
Yeah, we can't pay to shoot them out of planes and then manage them that way. It's just insanity. They want to make you more reliant on them.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And then it's funny because I think you get seen as a conspiracy theorist for saying things like that. But really, when you look at the overarching theme of how it all lays out, it's all about control. They don't want you to go and they don't want you to hunt. Where Ben lives, you cannot share your meat. It's illegal to do so. If you're seen to be doing that, it's an illegal act. It's so ridiculous. Just that as a concept. Really, that's across Australia, but it's just interesting to watch. Like, I've fed my family off of wild game for the last 3.5 years. And I reckon that saved me 10, 15 grand a year. And you're like, hold up, that's a natural resource that people are literally shooting from helicopters like you're talking about and leaving it lay. How much could we be saving the nation from that? Yeah, it's very interesting. Natural resources here in Australia get given away all the time. Unfortunately, we don't tax correctly for it. And then the Australian people pay for it in general.
And there's no doubt in my mind that your hunters would contribute to foot the bill for the food processing plants that are inspected for safety and all that, and all the supplies needed and the distribution. I'm positive that any organization could put together a fund from hunters. Your hunters would fund that to give to benefit those people.
Definitely.
Need that.
You set up a ballot system to say, hey, you need to pay to hunt here. People would happily do it. They're already doing it. They're paying the private land. What's interesting is I feel like if government had to go through an act of being businessmen before they went into government, things would run so much better. If they learned how to run a successful business, or at least a profitable business from word go, and that was a thing that had to go into place before you could ever step into government, we would just be so much better off.
Yeah. They know how to run an organization and
exactly.
And do it, financially appropriate way. But they're all lawyers or academics. And it's all theoretical.
Yes.
And,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We're going to start
step in just to be a politician. Yeah, I know, right? It's a rabbit hole. We did ask the question before, the bread and butter slash your favorites, and you said it did change recently. Has it changed as to what you want to hunt or the favorite thing to
Yeah.
hunt?
So I can't elk are very mobile animals that live in a giant landscape. And it takes a lot to locate them and hunt them correctly because they will find the most remote spots in any given drainage or series of drainages. And so it takes a lot of work in very steep, rugged country to hunt elk correctly.
Yeah.
So as I age, obviously I can't do as good a job as I could before. So it limits my opportunities more. But also I have been so intrigued with the hunting I've done in New Zealand with Ben. And so I would really, as I visit your country at least once a year, I really want to be exposed more to the opportunities of hunting a different species and learning new habitat and new habits and learning to be successful on these species. Are so much like our elk. It's like a 2/3 elk with just as big antlers, right?
Yeah.
Or what a species to hunt that's so akin to what I grew up doing. That obviously captures a giant amount of my attention now.
Are
Is
you
my
talking about the
desire
red
to hunt.
deer in particular, or just
Yeah, red deer in particular, but sandbar, Ben's told me how much more savvy those critters are.
yeah.
Yeah, how much more ghosty they are, so to speak.
Yes.
I don't know if we've ever had a good spot to hunt for those, but that's very interesting to me also. I had never eaten goat meat before I went to New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I figured those critters would be the nastiest, gamiest thing in the world. But I think I was with Joel. Joel or Bodie shot a goat and we took a hindquarter and I was blown away at what good meat that is. Holy mackerel. Ben told me that's the most commonly eaten,
It is,
meat
yeah,
in the
in the
world.
world. Yeah.
And now I can see why that would, I do a lot of hunting for a lot of species if I was there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And in our whitetail hunting, it's just more laid back. We may have a few 100 yards to move. It's not as satisfying because we take a deer out of a tree stand and that you never took one forward step towards that animal when you get it.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's something about me putting my input and my hunting skills towards that that appeals to me more or a satisfaction level. But I greatly enjoy whitetail hunting and I enjoy it from the ground. And some of the canyon country we've hunted in the neighboring state with my nephew has been really good because it's all spot and stock.
Yeah.
But I enjoy the process of tree stands. I enjoy watching the forest wake up from a tree stand. That's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I relate a
Um,
lot to what you just said. And I think the challenge with the tree stand hunting process, it's a different game, obviously, but the hardship comes in being able to sit there all day. The hardship comes in being able to be still and be with your mind and be there for the day. I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially in really bad weather.
Yeah.
So, skill in the study of their movement patterns, their feeding bedding, when you're set up, there's a skill set there, certainly. And your approaches to the tree stand have to be spot on because if those things pick up, you're wearing rubber boots and stuff, but they pick up where you touch brush with skin. Those older bucks are savvy as all get out. They get one with a forget him for at least 2 weeks. He's not going to be in the area. So this deer get pretty savvy about detecting human presence. So your approaches to the tree stands, how you set them up, and topography and funnels, and people get pretty good at picking out their travel routes like that. And there's a skill set there for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
I love doing it. I'm not degrading it in any sense or in any way whatsoever. But there is something about not having taken a step towards them that
I
in the
agree.
back
Yeah.
is a little different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciate the other types a little more. Although I really enjoy. And the good whitetail hunters, I'm not such a person. I've never got to really target a big buck, and I've never had the place to do that on my own and test my skills. But so I can't say I have the skills to be a big buck hunter for those guys that some people just get them every year.
Yeah.
My son Dan is one of those guys. He just studies and he thinks it's quite simple, but he just doesn't make mistakes. He just won't. If the wind is dicey at all, he's out of there. His approaches are always perfect. His setups always have good cover. He just doesn't make any mistakes, and he's really good at killing those big bucks. But anyways,
It is interesting because obviously it is a learned skill, but once it does become learned, and it was something that someone said to me early on, is once you shoot a deer, it will like the floodgates will open and you'll see that it starts to happen more and more. And it
Absolutely.
really is that learned skill of there's so many parts that come into it, but really once you understand A, deer pattern ability, and then B, the process of stalking, that was probably the thing that took me the longest to actually get a grasp of is how to stalk correctly and how to stalk effectively. And I felt like for so long coming into it, especially as a late onset hunter, that was yeah, it was just an interesting process to have to go through because you can be sneaky, but you have to be sneaky in the right way. And that was definitely something that I struggled with. But now that I've got a bit of a grasp to it, it's pieced together nicely. It's like yeah, all those, as we said, those steps you need to almost notch into your belt before you can remember them and continue forward with them.
There's a concept in imperceptible movement.
Mm,
And if you got the time, you can be in view of those animals if you're moving this fast.
yes.
If I start over here and I talk to you for a while and I could shade my way over here, pretty soon I'd be here and you wouldn't even notice. And I've done that with elk and deer, and it is boring as all get out. You're not balancing on one foot a lot as that other one is moving so slow to set it down and maybe
Yeah.
wiggle a branch out of the way with your toe and then setting it down and then weight shift onto that one so the other one can lift. That can be boring and grueling, but
Mm.
man, it's satisfying if you can hit right up in a shooting range of something like that.
Yeah. I had
Last
some.
year hunting stag, the roar was over. We were locating on the glass, and we found one stag. We found his antlers in the brush, and Ben said, "You better hurry up. Wind's going to start kicking around here." And it was a maze of Matagari,
Mm,
and I had to get 5 yards from him. And then I was just sitting there like this. And then a little tuft of wind hit my ear. Damn it, the wind shifting. And he stood up and I was like, just take a step forward. That's all I need. I'm at a hard quarter away behind this bush. He's on the other side of the bush.
yeah.
And there's a lot of imperceptible movement getting in there. And just take 2 steps because I'm just going to, it's just the here to here, right?
Yeah.
And then the wind hit my back of my neck and it blew up. The world blew up. So I got to 5-1. And then I had to crawl on my hands and knees under the brush for about 50 yards. And I was able to get to 10 yards to the edge of the brush one was laying in because it was too far across that. There was no cover in between. So I had to crawl. I had to push my bow ahead of me and pull myself on my belly, drag my belly and my toes across the ground. And I got to 10 yards to this dude. And I was just going to lean up with the bow finally. And there was two of them on a little elevated spot about 60 yards. And I was just going to raise up and let them see me and just give them a little of this and let them stand up. And then I'd be waiting for this dude. But I was pulling an arrow. I'd shot at a turkey and I had a dull broadhead in front. So I was pulling one from the middle. And as I was taking it out, it tinked against the shaft.
Uh-huh.
And this is after the roar. These things have been hunted for months.
Yeah.
And the whole world blew up with stags. But that was really one of the more satisfying hunts I'd ever had, being 5 and 10 yards from those, just being sneaky.
Yes.
That was so much fun.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely love that.
boring and a little grueling physically, but dang, that feels good when you can shinny right up to those things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is nice and being able to see them that close and have all the finer details in your mind. Like when you can see their eyeball when it's moving and you can see their
Yeah.
eyelashes and stuff. Like, yeah, it's so fascinating. And obviously, you study the animal and you grow to love them so much. And so then, as you learn more about each new species, it's just it opens up a whole new world. It's really quite fascinating.
Your species in red deer, there's still somewhat of a mystery now. Elk for 50 years.
Yeah,
And I can remember like early on when I was younger, everything was a mystery. Like, how do these guys do it? How do they get close? And everything you learn was this cool epiphanies. And it was so neat that the whole process of learning all about how to get this done was so amazing. And the mystery's gone now. If I got the legs to get to them, I can find them and I got tactics. I can get them. And that took a little away from me. But now I got into this and Ben's getting me hunting red deer and hunting these goats up there. And there's wild pigs on the property and the tactics they have to use in that terrain and that topography with that brush is all different and it's mysterious again. So that to me is so appealing.
yeah,
There's a little mystery back in it. I don't know how to figure these suckers out. I don't know how they move. I had to learn this. Here's one thing I had to learn is you have to start your stock a hell of a long way from those animals like 300 yards because they're so wary. They're so conscious of their environment.
Yes.
If you watch a little flock of turkeys by them, they're over the hill.
Yes.
If you bump a deer and it runs by them, or they see it going over that hill, they're over
They're
the
gone.
hill.
Yeah.
They get to the top of the hill and they just stand there and study the terrain for the longest time. And they're seeing how the other animals are moving.
Mhm.
You bump something else. So you got to literally stalk your way around these fallows. You may have to detour to get around a fallow to get back on track and you're stuck. You bump that fallow, you bump that
You know,
red
you
deer,
read. Yeah.
that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
exactly.
I mean, that's cool stuff.
That's why I think,
Dan and Doc over at Doctari Doc, and
yes. Yeah.
I didn't care much about that. I hunted my own a lot there, and I wasn't having success. I was starting way too late, and they taught me you got to slow down way soon, way
Mhm.
slower to get around these other animals. So that was something I learned from the local guys and better hunters to me in that environment for sure.
Yeah, I'd say we've got a definite like love-hate relationship with kangaroos as bow hunters because kangaroos are what always ruin the stalk for us a lot of the time here in Australia. Yeah, because you'll see the kangaroos, they'll all be in the same sort of locations as the deer, and they're not necessarily more cluey, but you'll obviously put the deer in a position so they can't see you, but that means that the kangaroos can see you. So if you're walking through and the kangaroos take note and they take off, then yeah, the stalk's done. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
first time over there, I was like, man, I hope I get to see a kangaroo. It's probably fun to you. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. So you saw one then?
Yeah, I saw one.
Good, good.
About 300 pounders.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, definitely. Tom, thank you very much. I think what's really actually important for us to say is that you are coming back over to Australia to run some seminars next year. So you're going to be here in March before you go out stag hunting in New Zealand, which is very exciting for you, but also it's a great time for people to dial in their shooting with the traditional gear before the rut comes on here in Australia for fallow and the reds, obviously. At the moment, you haven't necessarily dialed in the finer details, but Ben Mayer is someone that they should reach out to, Benny Ma. So yeah, if you need contact, then obviously you can reach out to me or you can reach out to Ben. I did a podcast with him as well, so you guys can go back and listen to that as well. But the finer details will come down to when it's all organized as to where you'll be and what you'll be doing. There'll definitely be one in Victoria, potentially another one elsewhere, but I'd say, yeah, the concept of being able to watch what you just went through and piecing it all together, having you in person and doing the physical cues and helping people to actually understand their body would be just 100 times greater on top, I think, of this, just because it's like it becomes independent, it becomes individual to you. And the things that you would say in person to feel this, okay, that's what you need to hit every time. That's the part where it's like the brain's already working, but then when you connect it to your physical body, it just becomes so much more powerful. So I feel like there's so much gold in being able to work alongside with you in person. So yeah, I'd really strongly recommend anyone that can get out to those when you come out in March next year.
Yeah, I tried to hit the foundation pillars of shooting, the most foundational, biggest concepts that make the biggest difference with the talk today. And with those concepts, we can build some pretty good accuracy. And with some of those concepts, we can start the process for overriding this reflex or this target panic issues if you want to not shoot with some kind of trigger. To narrow it down just a little more, I know that Ben and I will be stag hunting on the 28th of March, or either traveling or that's our first arrow hunt. I'm not sure. But the 2 weeks prior to March 28th is where we're going to be doing those clinics with him.
Yeah, mate.
I would advise people get a hold of Ben and he can get your number, all your contact info. That way, when he nails down a place, he can call you first to get into those clinics.
So 14th and 15th of March and then 21st and 22nd of March.
Yeah, I've made such neat friends in your country. I love the people. It's such a fabulous country. And it's been a giant blessing to me to come over there for the friendships I've made. It's just been awesome. So that's what I'm looking forward most again. And in sharing this great stuff that I've got to learn. Trust me, in a clinic, it goes another few steps deeper than even today.
Yeah, I can
So that was a
imagine.
really deep dive into some pretty foundational stuff, but there's a whole bunch more.
Yes, yeah, I can imagine. The 2 hours in what we just talked compared to, I'm sure, what a whole day could unravel. It'd be very fascinating to see. Excellent, Tom. Thank you very much. I think if people want to follow along on your stuff, what is your handle on Instagram? Is that the best place to find you?
Is my name. It's Tom_Clum. That's a CLUM _senior, but just I think you
It's
just typed in Tom Clum,
yeah.
Tom Clum, it'll pop up. RMS Gear has one too. It's just RMS Gear, RMSGEAR has an Instagram feed too and a Facebook feed. I don't know how much we use that one. We have a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search RMS Gear. And we've got some good content. There's always some shooting content. There's one that was just Tommy and I stump shoot and talked about the use of the grip trigger and how we use it. There are a lot of shooting advice, a lot of content on our RMS Gear YouTube channel. We just did an interview with the best hunter that I know from Colorado and some of his stories as a 42-year Alaskan guide. He's 63 now. He's guided in Alaska for the last 42 years and got an unusual infection from a grizzly bear that his client killed that he tells a story of. Another bear had eaten it. And while he was skinning the bear, the other bear came out of the trees and charged and pounced on the carcass, which he was kneeling down and working on, and had sat to his butt and leaned back, and that bear's head was literally right over it.
God.
And poked himself with a knife and explains why he's not in Alaska right now with the infection he got. It was a very unusual infection. But that's an interesting story, and a lot of his other grizzly bear and guiding experiences and hunting ethics, and a super interesting guy there. Like you, we wanted a good friend that was top-notch hunter, most badass dude I know, as far as a traditional hunter goes.
Yes.
And I know that's what you guys are after too, but that might be interesting for your audience too. I'm going
100%.
to get some people in America to start listening to you because it sounds like you've had great guests and great content in your
Yeah, thank you. No, yeah,
I'm going to advertise your YouTube channel to a lot of guys too, because more the better, man.
the interesting thing is it's just been 6 years of being consistent, and I had a little bit of time off in the middle, but really just making sure that I'm putting out one episode a fortnight, like getting the consistent talks happening. And what's funny is I hit up like I built a wish list when I very first started, and just slowly have been ticking those people off. It's funny when I look back over Instagram and some of the outreaches. I sent another message to someone who was well known the other day, and I look back and over the last 6 years, the amount of messages that I've sent them, I'm like, that's very funny. I'm like, I wonder if we ever get to talk, and if we do, it's definitely something I'll bring up as a part of the conversation. But I think
Yeah.
it's like anything. The more you network, the more you get to know, the more people that you can then get introduced to, and that's where where this podcast has been very successful is because of the community. It's not because of me. It's like really we got connected because of Colin being here the other day, and you were someone that I always had on in the back of my brain. Is I need to talk to Tom because of I just knew your knowledge in traditional bow hunting was so massive. But it wasn't until Colin came the other day, so I can tee up with Tom. I'm like, great, let's do it. And so it was just like a straight, easy process. And it really does come down to the network. But I think that's just such a speak to exactly what you were saying before about having great friends in Australia. It's the community that bow hunting brings together and builds out. And it's really what kind of keeps driving me to do what I'm doing with the podcast as well. So yeah.
It's work. Nice
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. Anyway, I appreciate your time and thank you very much for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Anytime, Maddie. My pleasure.